So, hey, Chris Short.
Hey, Langdon.
Nice to
Long
see
time
you.
no see, the illustrious one.
Right, and thanks for coming on the show. Still can't quite get over that we first met in person. What, 2 days ago? Yesterday?
2 days ago.
2 days ago, which is still
wild,
crazy,
considering everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And did you realize? I didn't realize this until much later, like a few months ago. You know, our last show together on the Level Up Hour was the 42nd episode.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That is amazing.
Isn't it? And I didn't even notice it at the time. But yeah, it was the 42nd episode.
That is awesome.
Isn't that great?
Here's the thing. At the Contributor Summit on Monday,
yeah,
like all the organizers got like hockey jerseys.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's Detroit, hockey town, that kind of thing. So like most of the numbers on them were 42.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, wow, there's a lot of 42s this conference, and then here's another one.
right. But yeah, and I was just talking to Christian, and they're planning on doing. They're going to end the Get Up's Guide to the Galaxy, and they're going to end it on the 42nd episode, which is what
brilliant.
Think of it.
That is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Particularly for that show name, right?
Right.
But I thought it was particularly hilarious. So what we were talking about a little bit before the show, so I have a Timbuktu bag, which I didn't realize it was a gift to me.
Oh, those are great bags.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
It was like a kind of, hey, you're leaving gift, right, from my team. And I didn't remember that they had a lifetime warranty on stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so the interior, like the lining and the inside was starting to go
Fade,
bad.
whatever.
Yeah, and so I was like, I looked in there, I was like, finally, I'll go see, maybe I can get it fixed. You know, I really like the bag. And so I sent it to him. And yeah, it turns out, if it's covered by warranty, it's free. But if it's not covered by warranty, it's $25.
Oh.
I'm like, okay.
Well, now, wait a minute.
I don't care. Like $25, I want my bag back, right? Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's supposed to arrive at home today, but right now I'm carrying a Patagonia backpack that I got from Red Hat, like 95% of all my other things.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't have enough pockets.
Right.
I think is my problem with it.
So like I had to switch to, because of my shoulder injury, I had to switch to a rolling bag.
Oh yeah.
So that has like made my like travel life so much better.
Yeah.
But there's like so few options. It's I'm just gonna keep buying this $40 one over and over again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So because I actually was looking into it a little bit, and I would definitely take recommendations because my daughter is not supposed to carry a backpack anymore because she's had some bone issues, and so I was thinking about trying to get her a roller bag. It is also, she's in high school, so the worst possible choice. But I was wondering if you'd seen anything cool, but it sounds like maybe
no. But here's the thing, I got it when I joined Amazon. Sorry, AWS.
One of those companies. Yeah.
Well, anyways, I got it when I joined Amazon, and I haven't looked since. But I really wanted. So I did when I was searching. I tagged Timbuktu and Away bag.
Oh, good choice.
And y'all should work together on a collaboration for a laptop bag that rolls for disabled people.
That's a really good idea.
That.
Yeah. I should go find that tweet and retweet it.
You should. Actually, I will find it for you and send it to you.
Yeah, because my daughter could totally use something like that, especially if it was kind of cool. Because again, she's a 15-year-old high schooler.
Right.
Which is like the worst for like clothing choices or bag choices.
So speaking of containers.
Yeah. We do some stuff with that. You were telling me something really cool about a new project that's going into OCI.
No, it's already been released. It's we call it Sochi for short, but it stands for Streaming OCI.
Okay.
So you would think Streaming OCI. Wait, is there like Kafka involved? No,
yeah,
it's not that kind of streaming. Right. It's not a message queue.
Right.
It's actually is taking something from the web development world, lazy loading, because you can lazy load images on your website.
Right.
That way it doesn't affect your Google whatever score.
Yep.
But you lazy load your images, and you can lazy load your layers now.
Oh, by layer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Every layer could be lazy loaded. So you could be pulling down layer 1, compiling it or building it, and then layer 2 is in the process of being pulled down. You can actually act on each layer as it's getting pulled down.
Oh, wow.
As opposed to you have to pull the whole image down.
Huh.
And, so it incentivizes you to have multiple layers.
Right.
Which is awesome.
And kind of, and almost in the sense of best practice, but orthogonal to, I think, what people feel like they should do. Because obviously if you have multiple layers, right, you're rebuilding like less stuff,
right.
know, as regularly.
Yeah,
but
like,
that's,
I mean, you're like, you basically, like in an AI/ML concept, you're only changing your model layer, right? Like,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's all you're changing, right? Like, and if you're using ECR, we're looking at some performance optimizations that we can do to make those workloads pull down faster.
Oh, interesting.
With streaming OCI and some, other stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things, I've actually done in the past 2 days, right, is to talk about, like, one of the cool things about open source, right, is a lot of people get into it to scratch their own itch, right? So Amazon had an itch they needed to scratch, so they built this thing that,
yes.
It seems like it'd be really cool for me, whether I'm using it with, in Amazon's infrastructure or not. That's really cool.
It will change the way you think about your container images.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
When you think of it in that context where it's like, oh, I could load the OS layer and have that just sitting there ready for the next thing to start.
Right,
and then the next thing to start after that. And then, okay, here comes the actual big layer, the model.
Right.
And then
when
I'm
it
good.
Actually, right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no, it's a cool idea. Like, it's one of those things where, in kind of retrospect, it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, it's like I have to like let it percolate in my brain for a while for like, how could I take advantage of this?
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
The how you take advantage of it is you need to have a registry that has this thing, enabled.
Oh, so there's a server-side component too?
Yeah. So like,
well, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. So like, basically, if you're using one that has streaming OCI enabled, which I'm sure will be, a thing soon.
Right.
For a few of the, registries that are out there, you just have to rebuild your image and you're good.
Right. Okay.
And like that's the only like downside to it, because you might not want to necessarily rebuild all your images. But if you're just rebuilding them as you use them.
But it doesn't turn the registry into only streaming.
No,
right? So
so
you just build them slowly over time.
Right,
yeah.
and boom, you're done, right? Like, it's not going to run a background process to rebuild all your layers, because that would just choke your registry.
Right. Well, and on top of that, like, I mean, personally, it's one of those things where this is one of, those places where, sysadmins do something kind of dangerous by default, where I feel like there's not enough rebuilding of the layers in general.
Yeah.
I don't know that to be true, but kind of anecdotal evidence seems to indicate that, people are not turning their stuff over often enough.
Speaking of anecdotal evidence, not to plug my own content, but
this
is actually germane to Kubernetes. I was at DevOps Days Chicago. Again, probably one of the best DevOps days in the country. Detroit's up there. Obviously, Minnesota's up there. Boston's a good one.
Right.
So I did an open space. Container conundrums. Tell me your pain points managing containers.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's on my website, chrisshort.net. It's the first blog post right now.
Okay.
And it's just notes from that open session. And we had like 25 people in the room. And there was one company I need to tell you about that was just like, oh my gosh. And then there was quite a few companies where it's like, are you enforcing least privileges? Are you enforcing any kind of policy? And the answer was just flat out no.
Right.
Which, from a world of supply chain security freaking out.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, squirrel.
Yep. We almost killed a seagull earlier because it flew like right in front of the car, and then
how would you explain that one to Ford?
Right, and we've had multiple goose crossings.
And there's a lot of geese between the river and here.
Yeah, we get a lot of them in Boston too. There's actually a full-time job of a person who scares off the geese on. There's basically like a strip of. Kind of walkable area, kind of like it's like a waterfront strip out of that area, because the goose poop is so hard on the grass and the plants and everything, and so it's not even like for the people. It's just because it's so hard on the area, and so they basically have this job to scare them off.
What a crappy situation.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part is like, I don't goose are mean. Geese are mean, right?
Like you don't know that unless you know that.
And
right?
I'm like, I don't want that job.
Exactly.
Like, I'm afraid of geese.
Yeah, and there's so many geese around here because of all the lakes. But
right.
For folks that don't realize where we are right now in Detroit, I'm a local, so this is Belle Isle. It is this really cool island, kind of in the middle of the Detroit River, right? Like the border for Canada is like off to the south of the island.
Right,
so this
which
is, where
also super weird.
Right, so like this is where I get the saying I drive south to get to Canada because I live northwest of here.
Right,
so and the border crossings are only right here. But this is actually a really historic island. There's a amazing aquarium that's on the island. But
really?
It's so old that like it can't stay open during the winter anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's like the water and everything else. So like they just got to maintain temperature basically.
Yeah.
And they can't have the fluctuations of people
all the humans running around.
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
That's cool.
But yeah, there's a lot of very interesting stuff in downtown Detroit. Like on a walking tour, it's very easy to point out. We're on a driving tour.
Right. So it's a little harder. Yeah.
It's more like we got to be on the streets, and for folks that don't realize it, we're recording during rush hour traffic, essentially. Or
so
like
we
right
were
on the tail end of it.
We did discuss like doing something like that, but it was like
it could have been like that could take 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'd be just be in bumper to bumper traffic. And, then that sounds like a lot of fun for no one.
So the other cool thing that I'm working on in the Kubernetes community is
geese.
Oh, hey geese.
Yeah.
Like, they do move out of the way.
Eventually.
Yeah. So like we have wild turkeys up where I live. And they don't.
I keep telling this story that we have them on the BU campus, and they block the student union sometimes.
Yes.
And they're
very aggressive.
Yeah. And so we have those, and we have the geese on BU's campus blocking students from getting lunch.
Oh my gosh.
On the regular.
So foul.
Yeah, exactly.
So foul.
I didn't. Yeah, we rolled up for all the uncle jokes, right?
Yep. Anyways.
Yeah. All right. So other thing in Kubernetes land.
So I work with Caslin Fields on what's called now the contributor comms team. And that team is absolutely amazing, right? Like it's a great way to get started in Kubernetes if you're a non-code contributor.
Right.
And B, if you are a code contributor, we can throw work your way too.
Right. We have software for you to write. Yeah.
So yeah, like we actually had originally, we're like, okay, fine, let's set up a Twitter account. We have the kubernetes.dev site. We can blog there, have this Twitter account. Oh crap, how do we automate tweeting in our GitHub approval process?
Oh yeah.
So there's actually stuff for that.
And that's cool.
So we had a group of folks that built it, and then it kind of fell out of maintenance, and we had to fix it.
Right.
Another group of people got smart on it and fixed it. So it's it's a great way to bring people on board. And I got and the reason I'm mentioning this is because yesterday morning I woke up to somebody who was working in contributor comms. And I was one of the sponsors to get them onboarded into the Kubernetes org, which is a big moment for a Kubernetes maintainer or contributor of any type. Still, those moments still happen in the community, even though we're disconnected because of the pandemic and everything. Those amazing moments still happen where you're I worked with you on this Zoom. I pointed you in the right direction. You went and fixed the thing with your skills.
Right.
And look at you. You've got 4 closed PRs now.
Right.
You have plenty of stuff, and you've done all the work.
Yeah.
To get and become a member of the Kubernetes org.
Right.
Which is the second most popular open source project in the world. Right.
Yeah.
Now after working in SIG Contrib-X, contributor experience, which is where contributor comms falls under. We're a sub-project of that, or whatever we call it. We're approaching geese, so I'm concerned what they're about to do.
Right. I know. They are unpredictable.
They are. That one turned hightail and ran.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Okay, cool. But the contributor experience team, right? We see how Git, what pressure we put on Git. Right?
Yeah.
The pressure we put on GitHub, the pressure we put on Slack. We are 100,000 something Slack members now. It's ridiculous. But Salesforce is always or Slack, I should say, is always hey, can you help us out? Is there any way you could reduce this number? And we've done a lot of work back and forth with both GitHub and Slack to kind of help out our environment overall.
Right.
So now it's come full circle. The GitHub people are showing up and saying, "Hey, where can we help?"
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have I do some GitHub management in the community, right? It's hard to be multi-hatted like I am.
Yeah.
And like I've been around Kubernetes long enough and this particular SIG long enough to kind of know where everything is,
right,
and how to move the knobs and dials and such. I was talking to Kim McMahon and Caslin Fields, part of the contributor comms team, about like, hey, maybe we could ask CNCF if they had some money to like just do the writing for us, and we interview the SIG leads and they build blog posts for us.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
We would have the domain expertise, we would have it all down on like email or whatever, and you just got to turn this into an awesome blog post.
Right.
And like that's something the CNCF could hopefully do. Because it is something that we do need to do. We do need to talk about those people that are actually chopping wood and carrying water and not getting that award this year, right?
That's right. That's what we're doing with the Insider Show. That's the whole kind of concept.
Yeah. So like the folks that are out there, and like I can point out multiple examples. Nikita, she is amazing, but she went from just a student contributor to now she's like running stuff in the org. It's awesome. Same for Nabarun. Nabarun has just absolutely come in and just like made everything awesome. He released a new KEPS website. So if you go to kubernetes.dev, you'll see a KEP, and KEP stands for Kubernetes Enhancement Proposal. Much like PEPs in the Python world, that kind of thing. Thank you, Joe Beta, for setting that up. It's actually been very helpful.
Yeah, it's actually a really nice way of kind of
proposing features, discussing them, hashing them all out.
It's just like the old, request for comment. Even though like not a lot of people even know what the IETF is, but the RFC model really built the internet, right?
Yes. And memorizing those RFCs when I was a kid has gotten me a long way.
And I continue to be angry at websites that do not follow the allowed email addresses.
Yes.
It's documented, buddy, that I can use a plus sign in my email. Please let me do it.
Yes. Your regex is wrong.
Yes, exactly. Drives me nuts. Or actually, I found one that the mobile app wouldn't allow it, but their website did. So, vice versa. And so I created the account on the good one, and then couldn't log in on the other one. And I was like, "What is up with this?"
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was really annoying.
We had a similar problem. Like I was in Seattle, but I was like in the process of like transitioning buildings on the Amazon campus.
Okay.
And like one of my devs messaged me, is like, hey, I need to have like, certain level of permission escalated because of this. And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that from my phone real quick. And like the mobile version of the site, no. Okay, request desktop version.
Right.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
No. Same URL on my laptop? Yes. So it was like laptop only? I can add people to my org? That's weird.
That is super
like,
bizarre.
Why would you even like
why
build that page, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, I don't understand why, and this kind of going back to the disabled thing, is like, why are so many web developers fascinated with making fixed fonts on their websites? Like, why can I not zoom in on your mobile app page?
Right.
It's like, sometimes I want to see something that's really small. Maybe it's driving me crazy that I can't tell if it's a comma or a period. Right. But everybody wants to lock the
font styling,
or whatever.
Yeah, it's wild.
It makes me go back to Matthew Miller. Told me once that he was talking to somebody about the original release of GNOME 3 how you couldn't change the background.
Yeah,
and
that was awful.
And he was like, and the person he was talking to was like, well, what if they choose something ugly? And I'm like, what? Yeah. That's the point. Right. It's my computer. I can choose ugly if I want to. And it's just,
if they choose something ugly or accessible.
Right, exactly. So, I just thought that was, super frustrating. But, all right, so, sorry, going back to KEPS.
Yeah, so Nabrun built this awesome site where it's just like, here's all the KEPs that are in flight. Here's the, title, discussion, summary kind of thing. And it's like, I could just use this to go comment on things if I need to. And it's a really great way. I think there's an RSS feed too. I forget.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Yeah. But it's like a really great way to see like what's being discussed in the community.
Yeah.
And a great way to stay like super on top
of
what's coming in Kubernetes
and
what's being discussed.
Yeah.
So if there's a feature you want, and it's not like already kept, like go
then you
search
know whether or
page.
not it's worth writing one.
Go search that page and see if you can link up with like some contributors and figure out which SIG is the right SIG to go approach with your feature request or idea or whatever.
Exactly. I actually remember having a conversation with one of the Python maintainers, I think, about an idea we had or whatever, and we went and looked for PEPs about it, and it had been actually kind of asked and answered. So somebody had written a PEP, and it had been declined, and it was reasoning, and it was reasonable. It was stuff that we hadn't thought of when we were thinking of the idea, So it was, it's a really good model.
It is a great model, and I'm very, very happy that we have it. And then this site just makes it 10 times better.
Yeah, totally.
But like Nabrun got his start in the SIG Contrib-X, I think.
Yeah.
But like he's a brilliant developer too. But he was helping out with GitHub management, and there's a lot of technical stuff, right? Like even like you wouldn't think it's hard. But getting Zoom meetings to YouTube, you know how hard that is.
Yeah, that is such a pain.
You know how hard that is. You've seen that pain.
Right.
I have felt that pain many times in my work.
I actually have it because I record all my lectures for basically similar reasons, right?
But you get to upload them to YouTube, don't you?
But I want to upload them to YouTube, and oh my God, it's such a pain. I keep wanting to write a script to do it, and just
so we might have figured out a way.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's work in YouTube automation that we might be able to reproduce for folks and say like, here's an artifact of SIG Contrib-X kind of thing, which is wild to think about SIG Contrib-X
having artifacts
code to like
that
do
contribute stuff.
Like that. But like doing moving things between API sources is hard still.
Right.
Like, right? So
well, especially
you've got authentication things you got to worry about. You got to figure out how to get from A to B, which security models do you want to use? Right. A whole lot of
and I was actually just thinking about this yesterday. It's like, I want to cross-post social media posts, right? Yeah. But everybody wants you to stay in their walled garden. So it's super difficult. Like, I understand why.
I get it.
But you see it in a lot of things like, Zoom to YouTube, right? It's like, you're not even in the same business. Like, I don't understand why it's not
can't you facilitate this pathway? Right. Oh, because lots of people would want to use it, and it cost a lot of bandwidth. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
But I've lost my train of thought for a second. But you
were talking about early contributors and being able to kind of come up through the contributor experience group,
right?
And then actually being able to contribute as the contributor experience group.
Yes. Yeah, and like having artifacts in that regard is like, here's the latest release of our. Could be a GitHub action, maybe. It could be like a Zapier recipe, even, right? Like, but to get that figured and worked out, might cost some money. And like, that's what I come in and say, okay, I know how to get you money kind of deal, right? Let's write this up for, the TOC to look at. And,
we can sometimes spend money to solve it the right way rather than,
as opposed to hacking some solutions together that might fall apart on us. Because we've done that.
Yes, many times. Yes.
Many times.
Yeah.
But like, that's stuff that I work on and work with people on.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And that's sometimes a great way to get involved, because then you go find and you realize, like I did one day, like Kubernetes has a shortcut to its YouTube page. So yt.case.io.
Yeah.
Me.
Oh,
I
nice.
made that.
Nice.
So I went into SIG Infra and I was like, we have all these redirects. How do I make one? It's a config map.
Right. So
brilliant.
15 seconds later.
10 seconds later, there's my redirect. Can you approve this, Tim? Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Hey guys, there's a redirect now.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I think people don't really appreciate how much it's appreciated, the little stuff. Like, I'll go and try to get something to build or whatever. And, and if the install docs are wrong, I'll do a PR and be like, hey, this thing, could be a little clearer. And I saw one actually on a piece of software the other day where, I was a little disappointed in the person because they had written it as an issue and even written the markdown of the content that they thought should be in there. I'm like, where's the PR? Like, just put it in the actual PR and make that your issue, because then somebody can say, oh yeah, that sounds good, click, done, right? But I think people don't appreciate how much that, and I keep talking about it in these interviews, is like, many perspectives makes a much better piece of software.
Yes.
And so when you're rolling along and you think this brilliant person has built this thing, you are often intimidated by offering anything because, it's like, no, they, 99% of the time they do not think it's perfect, and you can add a little bit and it's sometimes hugely helpful.
It's going to get way better too. And that's part of the work I've been doing at work is helping developers that have never worked in open source kind of learn, right? Like, it's valuable to get the maintainer's perspective because they've got context that you don't.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And
that is a huge thing, right? Like they can go back and show you maybe an issue and a PR where it didn't work out.
Right.
So they might be a little, some trepidation with that as far as, approaching that issue again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like I play this mobile game that's an open source mobile game, and I'll even shout out to it, Shattered Pixel Dungeon.
This looks like something I need to get into.
Yeah, it's a graphical rogue game.
Interesting. Okay.
It's fun. I like it a lot. But periodically I've made a number of suggestions for like features, and I think one of like 10 has not been like, oh yeah, I thought about doing that, but that's not really the direction the game wants to go, or I want to go with the game, or like, oh yeah, I also wanted to do that, but but if I do that, I have to basically change all of this infrastructure code, and he's like, I'm not quite ready for that level of rewrite.
So, one thing I've learned over the years, and I think I've learned it quickly, because I started in open source when I was like 18, I've learned this very quickly, is that if you've had the idea, chances are someone else has had it already too.
Right. And sometimes there's a good reason.
Sometimes there's a good reason for it not to exist, but maybe your implementation will be better.
Right. So, or there's enough of a tweak on your idea that it actually fits now.
Your idea might not be necessarily unique, but your implementation of that idea could be incredibly unique.
Yes.
And very beneficial to the community once it gets feedback from those maintainers. And then you're making something that everybody uses for something better.
Right, exactly. And there's also, there's that great feeling of, hey, I contributed something and other people are benefiting from it,
You know what, here's a funny
really
story.
Cool.
So GitHub has their Arctic Vault thing where they store code.
Yep.
So I was like,
I'm still not quite sure how I ended up in there, but I'm on that
list.
So
I was like,
what?
How did I end up in this?
Yeah.
And I look and I'm like, okay, Kubernetes, that makes sense. And then it was like HA proxy, and I was like, wait, HA proxy?
What did I do on that?
What did I do on that? And I look in my Gmail, and all the HA proxy mailing list stuff is buried. And so I go back and look at historical things, to the HA proxy mailing list from just me. And all I did was built an RPM spec file for them.
Oh,
that actually compiled because I needed it for a work thing.
Right.
And I was like, well, I can just make this, and here you go.
Right.
So my one commit with a bunch of feedback, obviously.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the Arctic Vault because of 2 projects.
Right. That's really awesome.
It's like one PR got merged for that.
Yeah. My suspicion is mine is something similar, but I have no idea. But what was I going to say? I've also, speaking of RPMs, I've also used the developer technique of if you write the first version of something and then show it to an expert, they're often so horrified by it that they fix it for you and take over maintenance. Which is a very useful technique I have found.
I'm going to use that on J-Pipes and the EKS org. Sorry, Jay, when you watch this later, I'm really sorry.
Right.
I'm totally doing it.
Yeah, I've done it a couple times, successfully, and really had something take off that way. But hey. Let's see. So, what else has been going on? We, haven't really talked much in, a couple of years now.
Yeah, it's been a year since I've been at AWS as of this week. So, a year ago, we were all in KubeCon LA doing this. Well, not this particular thing,
right.
but now you're in Detroit.
Right.
You're in my hometown. Right? This is where I live.
Yeah.
I chose to move up here.
Yeah.
Right? It was a conscious decision to move to Detroit. And, I worked in downtown here for 6 months. But to see all my friends here in this city.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
Paris Pittman and Valerie, they came through on one of their overflights. And, when I first moved here, we had, a huge contingent of like CNCF ambassadors that were here and
Oh, really?
Kubernetes
Oh,
contributors
interesting.
that were all right here.
Huh.
So they came and visited.
Right.
So
right,
I like
right.
went down to George Castro's house, and there was Paris and Valerie, and they were like, "This is awesome," and like I feel like, that effort might have helped with getting this here.
Yeah, right.
Because it is so amazing to see all of my friends that are here.
Yeah, that's totally
in
cool.
my hometown,
Right.
and so that there's probably been bad experiences. I know of a couple.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm sorry that happened, but
Right.
like Detroit was devastated in 2007.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife had to move when she graduated college, Michigan State. She had to move down to Raleigh, North Carolina in 2007. That's where we met.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I got all my connections at Red Hat and ended up
interesting.
working there. Right?
Yeah, right.
So, like, it's amazing how this city has been rebuilt completely from squalor.
I remember
now.
I did a sales call at OnStar, like 15 years ago.
Oh gosh.
And and it's like markedly different.
Yeah.
So
like 2007 was exactly 15 years ago. You came here and saw it,
it was,
probably at its absolute beginning of the worst.
Right. And I don't know. It's been all right. I live in the inner city, so I'm a little more used to city life than I think many people.
Yeah. And I think living in Detroit has kind of like desensitized me to like the extremeness of crime sometimes.
Right. Yeah. But I've been amazed by like I really like all the little murals that are around.
Like there's a lot of art. There's a lot of history down here, right? Like the largest concentration.
I saw the whole monument for the Underground Railroad.
Yeah, it's right on the riverfront.
Yeah, which I was like, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's
Detroit
like logical. It was a big
part of that. Rosa Parks moved up to Detroit after Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting.
So she lived and died here. After the whole thing got settled in Montgomery.
Right.
But yeah, she lived and died here. We have a very, very unique part in history here in this city.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So come visit Detroit.
I would recommend it. I've had I had a couple of really good meals so far.
The restaurant scene here is awesome.
Yeah, which has been really cool. But thanks so much for joining us for our little jaunt around town.
No problem. This is awesome.
I think it's been fun.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you, Ford, for the car. Wow.
Right.
Like this thing's sick. Like if you can afford it, get one.
Yeah. To be honest, I have no idea what the list price is.
So I looked, and they're like
more afraid of
70, 80K.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
but keep in mind, it's like the answer to the Tesla too, right?
Right.
For like the speed and everything else.
Right. Yeah.
So,
But it's a pretty nice ride.
It's like.
Yeah, the only problem is it's smarter than me. It's like I can't figure out how to do stuff like open the trunk. Like it's taken me a little while to get the hang of any of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Awesome.
But thanks so much, man.
Thank you.